The numbers defy comprehension. 40 million dead, entire civilizations erased, cities that had stood for millennia reduced to ash and bone. In the 13th century, a man born Temujin on the windswept steppes of Central Asia would build the largest contiguous land empire in human history, an empire baptized in blood and built on mountains of skulls. But who was Genghis Khan, this nomad who became death incarnate? What forces forged him into history's most successful conqueror? And how did his actions reshape the world in ways that still echo through the centuries? Picture a young boy, watching his father murdered by poison, abandoned with his mother and siblings on the harsh Mongolian plateau. In a world where survival meant everything, young Temujin learned his first lesson in brutality by killing his own half-brother over a stolen fish. But this was merely a prelude to the violence that would define his life. As we'll see later, these early hardships would shape his understanding of power, loyalty, and the necessity of absolute control. What must it have been like to stand before the adult Genghis Khan? Contemporary accounts describe a tall man with a flowing beard and fierce cat-like eyes, riding a white horse and commanding absolute obedience from his followers. Yet this figure, who would become the nightmare of civilizations, began as an outcast, forced to eat rats and roots to survive. His transformation from hunted fugitive to supreme ruler of the steppes would involve levels of violence that would shock even his hardened contemporaries. Consider the fate of the Tatars, the tribe responsible for his father's death. When Genghis finally gained enough power for revenge, he ordered every Tatar taller than a cart axle to be slaughtered. Men, women, and children were systematically executed, their bodies piled in grotesque monuments to his vengeance. But this was just the beginning. As we'll discover, his campaigns would elevate mass murder to an art form. By 1206, Genghis had united the warring Mongol tribes through a combination of military genius, political cunning, and systematic brutality. What followed was an explosion of violence that would reshape Asia and Europe. His armies moved with unprecedented speed and coordination, employing sophisticated tactics that would revolutionize warfare. Their favorite technique? The feigned retreat that would lure enemies into a deadly trap, resulting in total annihilation. Perhaps you're wondering how one man could inspire such loyalty while inflicting such horror. The answer lies in Genghis Khan's unique combination of absolute ruthlessness and revolutionary leadership. But opposition meant extinction. There was no middle ground in his world. The turning point came with his invasion of the Jin Empire in northern China. The siege of Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, in 1215 would showcase the full horror of Mongol warfare. After months of siege, the city fell, and what followed was a massacre so complete that contemporary accounts describe dogs growing fat on human flesh in the streets. But it wasn't just the scale of killing that made Genghis Khan's campaigns unique, it was their psychological sophistication. His armies would send advance parties to spread terror-inducing rumors about their size and ferocity. They would catapult plague-ridden corpses over city walls in history's first recorded use of biological warfare. They would drive captured civilians before them as human shields. The horror reached its apex during the invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire in 1219. When the Shah of Khwarezm executed Mongol ambassadors, Genghis Khan's response would redefine the meaning of vengeance. Entire cities were erased from existence. Libraries that had preserved ancient knowledge for centuries were burned. Irrigation systems that had made the desert bloom for millennia were destroyed. What drove this systematic destruction? In many cases, it was coldly calculating rather than merely sadistic. Genghis Khan understood that terror was a powerful weapon. Cities that resisted would be completely destroyed, their populations slaughtered or enslaved, while those that surrendered immediately might be spared. As we'll discover later, One of the most fascinating aspects of Genghis Khan's empire was its strange duality. While his armies brought unprecedented destruction, his rule also ushered in an era of relative peace and prosperity known as the Pax Mongolica. How do we reconcile these achievements with the mountains of skulls left in his wake? Consider the fate of the city of Nishapur in 1221. When his favorite son-in-law was killed by an arrow during the siege, Genghis Khan ordered that every living thing in the city, including cats and dogs, be killed. The heads of the dead were piled in pyramids as monuments to his wrath. This was personal vengeance on a scale never seen before. The question of Genghis Khan's true character continues to divide historians. Was he simply a murderous barbarian who got lucky, or was there method in his madness? Those who study his campaigns note the sophisticated military and political strategies he employed. He created a decimal-based military organization, developed an early form of general staff, and employed spies and diplomats with remarkable effectiveness. His death in 1227 was kept secret for months to prevent political instability, his body carried back to Mongolia in a massive funeral procession that killed everyone it encountered to keep the grave's locations secret. It worked. Despite centuries of searching, his tomb has never been found. Was this final act of mass murder necessary to preserve his legacy, or was it simply one last expression of the violence that defined his rule? The aftermath of his death saw his empire continue to expand under his sons and grandsons until it stretched from Korea to Eastern Europe. But perhaps his most enduring legacy was genetic. Recent studies suggest that nearly 1 in 200 men alive today carry his Y chromosome, the result of the systematic rape and enslavement of conquered populations. His armies didn't just kill, they permanently altered the human gene pool. But what lessons can we draw from Genghis Khan's bloody rise to power? How did this illiterate nomad create an empire that would last for generations? The answers lie in his unique combination of innovative military tactics, psychological warfare, and political acumen. He understood that terror was a tool of governance, but it had to be applied systematically and with purpose. As you consider his legacy, ask yourself, how different was he really from other empire builders of his age? Was he uniquely brutal, or did he simply operate on a larger scale than his contemporaries? The answers to these questions reveal as much about our own attitudes toward power and violence as they do about the man himself. Today, Genghis Khan's legacy remains deeply controversial. In Mongolia, he's revered as a national hero who united his people and created an empire. In other parts of Asia, his name remains synonymous with destruction and genocide. His story serves as a reminder that history's greatest empires are often built on foundations of bone and blood, and that the line between military genius and mass murderer can be vanishingly thin. In the end, Genghis Khan's legacy is both a warning about the destructive potential of human ambition and a testament to the capacity of a single individual to reshape the world, for better or worse. Was Genghis Khan a serial killer, or was he simply a determined ruler? Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like these.